Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds trying to find the secrets of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere as we reread its entirety of its story from Book 1 to Book 16 billion. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
The same thoughts that trouble me during the day are only compounded by the stillness of night.
John.
What if the hero came again? That's my Vin voice.
That was my Vin voice I was doing too.
Well, I don't have a good quote right now. I'm sad.
The rule of threes.
Oh boy. And we're all in a giggly mood, and I'm ReaderWarrior. And today we are going to be covering chapters 28 through 31 of Mistborn, the Well of Ascension, Part 3, King.
Oh, that was like, I thought of one earlier and I just forgot it. It was the
two tab.
You gotta get better at coming up with these on the fly, Kate.
I'm sorry. I literally thought of it as I was driving home. I was like, oh, that's what I could say. And then I just remembered it. It was that theory has been proposed.
The Coppermine quote.
I know, right?
How about we just jump straight into it with chapter 28? Sean, I believe that is yours.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, and the epigraph. He left ruin in his wake, but it was forgotten. He created kingdoms and then destroyed them as he remade the world. Okay, that was fun. Very mystical-y. To recap from the end of last section, Elend had just been voted out of kingship, and the crew was flabbergasted, because that's a good word. So when we cut into chapter 28, Tinwyll, of all people, is just letting Elend have it. Why would you make a law that would that would let someone remove him from the throne? And as he's kind of talking back to her, Vin is thinking to herself, man, he sounds like a book. But since he's not king anymore, maybe we could just leave. And then Elend is like, well, even if they pick somebody else, I would still stay in the city and do what I can to help the people here. And Vin's like, oh, drat. And they kind of plot back and forth on how to keep Elend on the throne, and Tinwyll just keeps letting Elend have it, like, you are dumb, your ideas are stupid, why would you do that? And at that point, something kind of miraculous happened. Elend's manhood grew 3 sizes that day, and he stood up to Tinwyll. So now he has not only stood up to his father with the backing of his lady Mistborn, but now he has also stood up to Tinwyll, all on his lonesome. You can disagree with me all you want, but you will not call me a fool anymore. And he was no longer a weenie.
That's right.
Wow, the job stamp of approval.
He officially stood up for himself, by himself, for what he believed in. Elend is now a man.
Somebody note the date and time.
A momentous occasion.
Chapter 28 of the Well of Ascension.
Paragraph 16.
Right. At that point, Vin realizes that Elend would make... Well, it's when Elend commits to staying, regardless of whether he maintains his kingship, that Elend is a better king than Kelsier could have ever been. And then Oreseur speaks up and says something weird, like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And Vin realizes she was petting him, which is kind of funny.
Yes, I love that moment.
So they discuss other ways to keep Elend on the throne, political ways, not just, rallying the army into the streets and making them obey, which is a very Straff sort of thing to do, now that I think about it. Like, the whole crew is like, we should do it Straff's way, and Elend is like, no, you fools, that is why I wanted to do it this way. Not exactly, but more or less.
I love it. It's like, Elend wasn't even listening to their debates. He was just going through books Like, that's what Vin was thinking in her internal monologue. And I can
Right.
picture him, like, being all excited and, like, picking up all his theory books and be like, no, we're going to tackle this the right way, the Elend way.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Vin and Oreseur are having their little side conversation about eating ham and Breeze, because they slow down the meetings, and you stop for a second and you realize, wait a minute, Oreseur's joking with Vin.
He's cracking jokes.
They're actually like chummy. Are they becoming friends? Wow. And all of that during a political and military crisis. So they come to the conclusion that maybe it's somebody outside the city who has set themselves up to become, the next king. And Breeze realizes, hey, that's something Cett would probably try and do. They ask if Sazed was invited to the meeting, and Spook actually tells him that he couldn't be woken up, and that's when Tindwyl finds out that everybody knows about feruchemy, and that makes her even more upset.
About Spook Ellen... thing real quick. Sorry. Isn't it weird that the guy who's got like enhanced senses couldn't be woken up?
No,
Spook was awake. It's Sazed.
Oh, Sazed. Sorry.
Besides, you can't burn metals in your sleep. Or, I know. You can, but,
Yeah, sorry. My bad.
He's all good. So,
it's been a long day.
We get a little bit of an inner monologue from Elend, and he's talking about how, man, this is so hard because I'm so good at what I do. Look at me flexing my political muscles. And kind of being just a little bit arrogant about that.
He's like, I've set this up in a way where you can't just rig the system and win it over. Like, you have to get the people to vote for you.
Right.
This sucks.
Tindwyl comes back and apologizes, and he forgives her in his kingly way. They chat a little bit about Vin, and, she asks how his meeting with Straff went. And he's like, oh, yeah, that was fine. But I think I offended Vin somehow. Like, I think I made her upset. And that's when he learns a lesson about young women in particular and their general self-worth or how they view themselves. And I don't think it's as universal as Tindwyl makes it out to seem. But she did kind of manage to hit the nail on the head in this particular case. So she gives him a little advice, and he kind of thinks about it, and that's kind of where the chapter ends.
I've got Elend's passion shot him in the foot, but he still stands behind it because it was right. I've got Elend was sincere, Kelsier was arrogant, which I think is probably the best way to describe both of them.
Yeah, but Elend's got a little of that arrogance and self-assuredness in him too, just in his own particular arena.
Yeah, and I think those aspects are good, but they've also got their own different problems to them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just like...
I like Oreseur.
Well,
sorry.
I was just going to say, like, before we move on, it is cool, like, it's kind of this balancing act, right? Like, Kelsier had the confidence, he had the arrogance, but he didn't have Elend's, how did you phrase it? Sincerity. And it's like, Elend has all the sincerity, but when it's time to go intimidate Straff and all that, that's when he's, like, sweating bullets. It's like, I don't know, I do like that balancing act of, like, not necessarily having one aspect be the strength, but it's, like, learning to embrace your own weaknesses. And, yeah.
I need my girlfriend.
My last note. Sorry.
Okay, I was just going to say, John, to your point of where you were saying that, like, Tindwyl's comment about girls is not necessarily
universal.
It's very, honestly, for most of the women that I have talked to, and I have been friends with growing up, a lot of, like, your own, like, confident, like, your competence has very little to what surprising, like very little to what like your actual how you actually feel about yourself. Like you can be really confident in something and be like, oh, like this is like.
But I'm still
And
an
that's-
ugly cow.
I'm sure a lot of people have that issue, but I didn't want to make a universalization about women in today's society.
Yeah, I
No,
don't
I
think
get
we
you.
That's a
have
death
the
sentence.
best. I don't think
Yeah.
we have the best point of view for this.
Right,
no, but
right.
I was just saying that like as
I'm sure a
someone
lot of people share that struggle. Like,
Yeah.
it's a real thing. I remember being not so confident in high school, you know, in that time period too.
I
I
feel that
just,
as an adult man.
you know.
Yeah,
right? Like,
It's-
I don't think that ever completely goes
it's a
away.
struggle, but it probably is significantly worse when you're at that age, young woman.
Mm.
Can't even imagine.
Yeah.
My last comment is that I noticed that Ellen starts referring to his father by his name. I don't remember if that was something that was throughout the entire book, but I definitely noticed it here. That either, I can't remember if I wrote the note referring to, does he say Straff, or does he, since the point of view of it, does he start referring to his father as Straff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I really paid attention to that. I don't think he ever really called him father all too much, except for directly to his face.
Mm-hmm. But it's something that I tend to notice, like, in the point of views. Like, certain characters tend to view a certain person as this is, like, so if you have, like, a child and a father, they'll view when their dad talks, they'll have dad said, da-da-da-da.
Sure.
Well, if it's, like, the dad's friend, it'll be Joe said, da-da-da-da-da. I didn't notice if it was throughout the entire book, but I definitely noticed it here.
I like that. That's cool. There's been a lot of talk about like the different ways that you can refer to someone and what that means for how you feel about them. That's like very thematic with this.
Great. Anything else for chapter 28?
I think that's all I got.
Okay. We got chapter 29, and that is Swiggity's.
All right, so coming in hot with the epigraph. There were signs that Alendi was the hero of ages, like his early gray hair, birthmark, and the way he treated people. It just seemed to fit. All right, moving into the main chapter here. Vin is burning pewter to stay awake for hours on end. Pulsing is closer and closer. Oreseur tells Vin not to trust Zane, as he has studied men and learned how to interpret who they are on the inside as part of his shape-shifting training. He's seen Zane for what he truly is, and he thinks that he's nothing but trouble.
Or
Vin offers to let Oreseur get a new body because he's been in the dog bones long enough, but he doubles down on them and says he doesn't mind. And this chapter is just them kind of bonding again. Oreseur states he believes Ellen did the right thing by upholding the contract that he made. Well, he says he did the right thing, and he likens it to how the Kandra uphold their contracts. And he can kind of see that, like, even though he's maybe doing something you see as foolish, the fact that it's playing by the rules and that it's fair has greater value than whatever disadvantage it puts him at right now. And as they go to jump off whatever tower they're standing on, Vin looks out over the horizon and sees the sun coming up. But the mists haven't quite faded away. They're fighting back the sunlight. And she has a Jimmy Neutron brain blast. And she goes, I know what the deepness is! And she runs off. And that's pretty much the end of the chapter.
am I too old to understand that reference?
Jimmy Neutron?
Jimmy
Must be.
Neutron? Again?
Boy Genius? It was the really, well, if you look back, it's really bad CGI, but it was the full CGI one. Guy had giant
It was on
brown hair.
It was on
It's like
Nickelodeon.
3D animated.
Oh, yeah, I must be. Because the boy genius is Doogie Howser. I don't know. Oh my god, you people are young! You don't know Doogie Howser?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Is he like a boy genius?
He's a 16-year-old who had gone through medical school and become a doctor. Played by Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, wow.
Oh, this was a TV show. It was a 1989 sitcom. How old are you, dude? It's on Disney Plus. Oh,
Damn.
It's the inverse of last time.
I'm sorry, John.
I'm old.
So Vin was...
But to get back on topic,
Vin had to carry Oreseur as she jumped off the tower, and I thought that was the best part of this whole chapter.
I think, no, well, yes, but my favorite part was Vin's like, that's a very Kandra way of thinking of things, and Oreseur's like, hello, Kandra!
Yes. Or how about when they were talking about the rotting meat? Like, what, do you just want me to
He's
tell
like,
you?
it's...
My dog wants to
He's
eat
like,
it?
it's not rotting, it's aged.
Aged meat is a thing, even for people.
Like a fine wine.
I know.
I haven't tried it yet, but it is a thing.
Yet was the concerning word there.
What?
No, there are ways to age meat.
It's called
that
dry
are-
aging, and it's supposed to be very delicious.
Yeah.
Kind of like a jerky?
No,
No,
so
it's you just keep it in circulating air so that it doesn't have a chance to like collect moisture and rot. So it kind of dries out a little bit, but you cut off the bark on the outside that gets dry, and then you have like a more dry piece of meat on the inside that takes a better sear. Wow, we are on tangent mode today. I apologize.
Like dry rub?
No, not even a little bit. Dry rub is just spices you rub on the outside.
Oh, quick tangent. Like, because I know we're already not on a tangent, but I had a Carolina Reaper chicken wing today.
Ooh.
And that was spicy as bad words. It was just really spicy. Holy crap.
Spicy as the Ash Mounds.
Oh, just
I'm
you
dying.
wait, sir. Your journey is not over with that.
Oh,
In about 18 hours, you are going to be on a wild ride.
no, not tomorrow. Oh.
Depending
I
on
suggest
how
bringing
fast
some
we get these,
Vaseline with you to work, just in case.
depending on how fast we get through these next two chapters, maybe I'll tell a story about how I poisoned my middle school class
Oh dear.
with peppers.
It's a good plug for the behind the scenes section at the end of the show.
Today's outtakes section.
Yeah. But I guess everybody just has jokes for this chapter. Mine is, do dogs have eyebrows? Because Oreseur raises an eyebrow.
Oh yes, they very much do. You have a dog. You should know this.
I don't stare at my dog's eyebrows. I'm more so looking at
You've
the
never
dog as it
seen
loves
your dog
outside.
begging for a treat, and it goes.
I'm looking at its eyes and how they're staring into my soul.
Especially Dotson's. Hold on.
This is how we get sidetracked.
This dog has eyebrows, okay?
Yeah,
Look at those.
mini dogs.
Yeah,
Aw.
he's got eyebrows.
That's eyebrow.
Okay.
Okay. Alright. Are we ready to move on?
I think we.
I think we're ready to move on. We've
Does
said all of
anyone
our
else's
jokes.
dog have eyebrows?
Does anyone else want to say another joke about this chapter before we move on?
So a Mistborn, a Kandra, and a Koloss walk into a bar.
Another joke, a different joke.
So chapter 30. So I had chapter 30 this week. So this is Cecid's point of view, and he's reading through the text that he found, the rubbing from the cave, what he's translated so far. And he's like thinking about how like amazing it is that he's found this writing, but he's also like conflicted with himself about like how he shouldn't necessarily be spending this much time writing. And within it, he focuses on the term world bringer that's mentioned, which was what the order of terracemen were called, that the keepers based themselves off of. So he's like really excited to have this writing that's written by a world bringer, because he's like, this is what we're supposed to be. Like, we were supposed to be these people. And he's also thinking about how annoyed Tyndall is going to be with him for not doing what he's supposed to do. And so, and he hears the window shutter, and he goes and he, like, opens it up, and there's Vin, and she's like, "You should leave your windows unlocked. Ellen got mad at me for breaking too many windows."
Which is a flagrant violation of Sazed's privacy, I might add.
Yeah.
Vin's not upset about breaking in. She's more so concerned about Ellen getting upset when she breaks the windows.
I mean, but that should just tell you something about how little she values the privacy of other people. She clearly values those people, but privacy means nothing to her.
Yeah, it's because of how she grew up, I think, because she didn't grow up with privacy, so she's like, why do people need privacy? Like,
you might want to start leaving your windows unlocked.
That sounds rather threatening, I would just like to say.
So, Vin sees the rubbing on Sazed's desk with the translations that he's done, and she locks onto the word deepness. She's like, this mentions the deepness. She's like, and they get into her and Sazed get into a conversation about, like, what is the deepness? And Sazed gives her a long-winded answer about what the deepness could be, might be, maybe, about whether people think, keeper stuff. He's gonna give you a very long answer. And Vin tells him what her suspicions are about the deepness. She thinks that the deepness is the mist. And
that theory has been proposed.
Yep. Sazed is like, yeah, I've heard that before. And she's like kind of disappointed because she's like, dang it, I thought I was the first one to think of this.
We should admit we
thought it was original
in our lives, right?
Oh yeah.
In this series, more so.
Yeah.
What if there was some sort of house phone?
So, Sazed is kind of like poking holes in her theory, and it's like, well, the Lord Ruler was like supposed to have defeated the deepness, but the deepness is still here. Like, and Vin pulls out her sheet of notes that she's very proud of. Well, she's not very proud of it. Everyone else is proud of it.
She should be proud.
And she's like telling Sazed about her notes and how these like correlate with the deepness, how the mist should be the deepness. And at one point, Sazed is saying to himself, and he's like, does she know nothing of proper research techniques? And he's like, no, she doesn't. That's not how she works.
She's like Gibbs. She follows her gut. That's about all she needs.
Yeah, I do love her.
Yeah.
Like, in this chapter, she's all Vinstinks. Like, no, Sazed,
Very much.
I know what the deepness is.
Yeah. Well, and her instincts are usually right as well. So, the Sazed is still hesitant. She's like, I'm not sure. Like, and talking about how not contradicting a point is different than proving one.
Her instincts
Which I thought was an interesting.
are not always.
No,
Thinking of the time she
are.
made herself pass out by burning Duralumin. Sorry.
But she did figure out what
you
did.
And she mistrusted Kelsier the entire time. I don't know. Her instincts are always actually wrong.
They're hit or miss.
You know what? This book is.
So she tells Sazed about the creature that she's been seeing in the mist. And he's like, are you certain that that's actually what happened? He's like, very like skeptical about it, but he's the type of person where he wants to have more evidence to support the fact. And Vin also brings up the fact that, like, what if Alendi, who is the hero, Alendi never completed what he had to do. So what if there might need to be another hero?
The prophecy is yet incomplete.
Yeah.
It must be fulfilled.
they move on from that. Then changes the subject when Cett is like, "What?" And they talk about Tindwyl, actually. And how she's like, Tindwyl doesn't seem to like you very much. Like, why doesn't she like you, like, at all? Like, what? And he's like, no, she's just disappointed in me. It's not that she doesn't like me. She does like me. She's just upset with my actions, my choices. Yeah. And we learn a little bit about Tindwyl's past. So Tindwyl was one of the Terris mothers. So she spent almost her entire life birthing children.
I wouldn't say mother is the right word.
No, but that's what the term is a Terris mother. That's the term.
Yeah. But...
that's why I said she spent most of her life birthing children.
This is really sickening.
Yeah. And that she generally had twins or triplets when she was having kids. And she was pregnant, and she spent her life very isolated from society and everyone else. And just had a horrible life, honestly. Which is really sad.
Kind of reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons where everybody in town is giving Apu's wife fertility drugs and she has like 15 kids all at once.
It's exactly like that. That was sarcasm. I take great issue with this. The whole breeding program thing to me is like just conceptually, like I had to really think about it. So what they're doing essentially is they're trying to breed better servants. So
they were also trying to breed out feruchemy, and they didn't know that Tindwyl was a feruchemist.
Right. Which that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, how you can't breed people to have personality traits. Like, I don't like but then how could you get that wrong? And because there's like recessive feruchemy traits that you're not going to be able to track. Like, it's just dumb. I just always thought it was dumb. Like, I hate to. I don't know what they were thinking in the Final Empire, and it really ended up screwing them anyway. So good for.
The Lord Ruler just really didn't want another feruchemist Elemancer. He was willing to do anything to prevent it.
Yeah.
And I think that was more the reason for the breeding programs, was to keep the Terris people separate, completely separate from the noble population.
So if you're a Terris, you're like, you don't even have like a real mother. You just have like that surrogate mother. Like, yeah. I guess I can see that.
I think that the Terris mothers, from what I've heard from Tindwyl, they did raise the girls.
Oh, okay.
Because the girls never became stewards.
I do remember her mentioning that.
I don't even want to think about that anymore. That leads me down a dark thought process.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could hate the Lord Ruler, but now I do.
Yeah, because Tindwyl's talked about how she's raised many daughters.
But this is the stuff that ended up bringing them down in the end. Because you think about it, right? Like, all these feruchemists that Tindwyl is responsible for now. And even like Tavidian, who used to bed ska women, his daughter killed the Lord Ruler. You know, like it's all these little evils that come back to bite them. I don't know. I love that.
Yeah.
Maybe not little evil.
Yeah, that's kind of where the chapter ends, is right after that. Vin leaves, so on that sad note.
Brandon very much liked to get dark. This chapter and the cannibal chapter.
In this series, he got darker in the Mistborn series.
Darker than what? Elantris? That was the only other thing he had published at that point.
No, but like it's darker than his other books.
But even compared to his other stuff, like this one is still got some pretty.
It's darker than Warbreaker
Yeah.
and Elantris. but I don't know that it's necessarily darker than Stormlight. There's some pretty dark stuff in there too.
Yeah, but you don't have breeding camps in Stormlight.
No,
It's
That's
darker
pretty
in a
dark.
different. So they're dark in different ways.
you very
Yeah.
much do have breeding camps. You just don't see them directly on page. How do you think they make more Parshmen?
John, don't
Yeah, but
ask
they-
questions I don't want to think about.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's there.
Oh, no.
Yeah. My only real comment about this chapter is that the Deepness might be a reference to the Sea Peoples, in which we've got records of ancient Egypt had fought multiple battles or even a couple of wars with this random enemy that came by sea, in which history has they never recorded who they were, they came from, not who they were or where they came from, but we've got records of the fact that these battles happened, and we have no idea what they are, so it's just referred to as the Sea Peoples.
Like before the Bronze Age collapsed.
My money's on the Greeks.
Probably the Greeks
Phoenicians.
or the Trojans, the Phoenicians.
Phoenicians were supposed to have like the best seafaring military.
They did.
I mean, it could have even been Vikings.
But what does this have to do with Mistborn?
Literally nothing.
Well, it's just, I was thinking the Deepness is like there is no historical records. There's no knowledge of this, of what it was. And I thought it was a little connection to the Sea Peoples.
And like a
Now,
metatextual.
we know this happened, but we've got nothing on it. Anything else for chapter 30? Sorry.
It seems to me that the beginning of each section, it's kind of like Vin going around and checking in with all of the rest of the crew. What are you up to? What are you up to? What are you up to? And you're making slight little bits of progress as we go.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that just kind of occurred to me as we've been talking. Like, oh, now she's talking to Ellen. Oh, now she's talking to Tindwyl. Now she's talking to Sazed. You know?
Mhm.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to have a very active role in terms of what she's doing. She's just kind of like mulling over the Deepness and Mist Spirit.
Yeah. I think it's also because she just doesn't really know what to do right now. Like, there's no role. There's no, like, there's nothing for her to do other than to just, like...
Worry about the thumping and the mist spirits.
Yeah. Like,
Which is
can't even-
nice.
like,
Sorry.
Ellen or other characters have things that they're doing. Like, Ellen is trying to, like, find information about, like, to get his throne back. Like, but, like, Vin's just, like, there in this book. So far,
Perhaps-
like...
Perhaps that's a parallel on how Oreseur is feeling, because we saw Vin trying to connect with Oreseur and say, oh, I've been ignored, beaten, left for dead, yada, yada, yada. But here now we've got Vin has no role to play. Sort of how Oreseur must have felt.
And it's, you know, she talks in earlier chapters about how, oh, I'm just put here to kill things. And Ellen, despite what he may say in front of Straff, has been very adamant about, or at least she thinks he would not want her to be his personal assassin like that. So she must feel like she has all this power, and the only thing she ever gets to use it on is fighting that Zane guy.
Or random Cett assassins.
Well, that's just a regular Thursday.
Anything else for 30? Okay, great. 31. In the end, my pride may have doomed us all. So says the epigraph. Philin, who used to be known as Lynn, but he now hates that, so I shall now refer to him as Lynn, who we saw in chapter 10, wanted to give the city to Straff, was the head merchant and proposed letting them control the food stockpiles. He is currently waiting for the assembly to start. Says he is not a Ska, and that his skills and history prove that he is a noble. Lynn nods to a hidden figure as Penrod arrives and comments on his suit. As they begin, Lynn imagines how Ellen might have reacted, and it's very annoying, and prepares to take what is his. He tries to get the door shut, but Ellen arrives with an entourage. Vin in a gown, the remaining crew members, minus Marsh, and 2 Terris people accompanying him. Even Oreseur, as of dog.
It's a pretty
Lynn-
intimidating picture, honestly. You know, Ellen walking in his, like, full suit, crown on his head, Ben in a ball gown at his side, dog at the giant wolfhound at the other side, Allomancer's behind him, 2 Terris people, like
He just walks. They burst open with the survivors' crew, just like, oh, it's so bad.
This is a king.
Yeah.
mhm.
Lynn and most of everyone is taken aback, and Ellen asks who's the new chancellor. Lynn says they haven't chosen one yet, and Ellen nominates Penrod, who gets 16 votes. Penrod allows Ellen to speak, and he reports what happened with Strath, albeit with an interruption from Lynn. Ellen calls upon the legend of the survivor and his legacy, Vin, the most powerful Mistborn alive. Vin lies to Ham and herself about how Ellen is saying she is. Tyndall backs up Ellen. Vin feels the bronze pulse and watches Zane sitting in the audience as he watches the assembly. Zane smiles at Vin and she shivers. Sorry, my notes are scattered around. Penrod asks if Ellen's going to rebuke his overthrow. Ellen says no. This public forum is not a place for accusations or denunciations. Wow. That's a good line. Very important. He is, however, disappointed. Lynn says that now is the time for nominations, and Ellen explains the rules. 3 days before the vote, minimum. Scum nominates Penrod. Penrod nominates Ellen. Lynn asks if the nominee has to be an assemblyman. It does not. Lynn then nominates Cett, and he stands up.
He does not stand
Sort
up.
of.
He does not stand up. He takes his hood off.
Yeah, reveals himself.
Yeah, he can't stand, so he didn't stand.
Right.
Sorry. And then Breeze says, I think we might be in trouble.
Dun dun dun!
Huh. That is such a good twist at the end. I love, like Brandon Sanderson has some of the best stingers at the end of a chapter. And this one, it's just like, how can you have like just a little political assembly meeting end on like a big cliffhanger? That's out.
Yeah.
I love Ellen's just, I know we were commenting on it earlier, but Ellen just bursting into the room. White outfit, Vin in a dress. How many Allomancers that are now like main aspects of the Final Empire / Luthadel. 2 Terrismen, a wolfhound. That's just such a great visual.
That's the kind of stuff that makes you want to see a Mistborn TV show or movie. So
Yeah. The only thing he was missing in his entourage was a Koloss. He really needed one of those.
oh my gosh, you're
That
right.
just rounded it out. That would have just rounded it out nicely.
Because
Yeah.
he did have
yeah.
like one of everything though. Like
Pretty much.
he had
Well, Marsh wasn't there.
Marsh wasn't there, so he doesn't have an Inquisitor.
Yeah, that's true.
That would have
He's
been
one of those too.
terrifying.
But he is friends with an Inquisitor.
Is Ellen?
Well,
actually, no. I guess not.
friend of a friend, kind of.
I kind of lump Marsh in with like crew, but he has been pretty much an outcast the whole time.
He probably
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
he probably got to know Ellen a little bit before he left the capital, because it does talk about how Marsh was in the capital for a little bit, because Sazed was like hanging out with Marsh for a little bit, and Marsh helped Ellen set up the government.
Yeah. So I like to think that they got to hang out a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, any thoughts for these 4 chapters?
Well, I was gonna say for the last chapter, just like the way Elend held himself in this chapter and the way he spoke to the assembly, you know, as someone who living in America right now, it was just like, you know, this is a really refreshing attitude that I wish I saw in real life represented anywhere, honestly.
That's why, specifically, this public forum is not a place for accusations or denunciations.
Yes. Like, it's just so refreshing to, like, see that, yeah, this is how it should be.
Yeah. And even going back to the chapter 28, it was 28, right? Where everybody's like, why did you make the rules like this? Why is it so stacked against you? That's kind of how it should be. The reason we're so against it right now is we kind of like Ellen being in charge. But what if we had Straff in charge and he was locked into these rules?
Yeah, it's genius. Like, he put the checks and balances in, you know?
Yeah, and he did it, and he put it there so that if he had an heir who wasn't doing a good job, that the assembly would have a way to check him.
So what technically is this particular form of government? Is this like a...
It's a constitutional monarchy.
But they don't have a constitution, so it's a parliamentary monarchy?
I guess. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, do they have a constitution? I don't know what they're...
Kind of similar
From
to
the way Ellen seems...
I was going to say it's similar to the Roman Republic a little bit, except instead of having like a consul, they have a king. Instead of having two, they have one.
And the king is a permanent position.
Yeah.
It's hereditary.
But they do seem to have like pretty strict guidelines and rules for everything.
It's new. It's just starting out. I guess, like, if you really examine it close enough, you're going to come to the conclusion that, there's no real world government that this like 100% matches up with. Imagine.
Most likely not. And watch, we get 5 dozen comments now saying, "No, you're wrong."
Somebody's gonna know,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I'd rather have somebody let me know for real than to just kind of take a stab at it.
I'm a political theory
Please
major,
feel free to correct
and
us.
this is a Nintendoocracy.
I want to live in one of those.
Don't we all?
Anything else before we move on into the spoiler? I'll take silence as a no.
That's probably going to save you 20 years in prison.
Well, oh boy.
I can't even. I don't even know what to say to that.
Don't say anything. It's safe.
Well, thank you so much for sticking around so far into the episode. We're going to go into the spoiler section now. We highly recommend that if you've not read this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, you stop here because it's likely we will talk about everything and anything. However, if you are up to date on this story, feel free to stick around. It is likely we will bring up details you may have forgotten or plot threads that are still yet to come. Please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, whatever it is on this video and audio. Don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. We would love to hear from you. But if this is where we leave you, then my name is Reader, and I've been joined by Swiggity Swoo.
I'm Swiggity Swoo.
Kay.
Okay.
And John.
Don't listen to my jokes. They're bad. They're bad.
And this has been Cosmere Connections. And we're back. I decided to switch up the order a bit. I thought it would be a little interesting.
Don't go crazy on us now. Wow, man.
Well, let's zip on back to chapter 28. I think the big one is he left ruin in his wake.
Right.
Yeah.
Calling out Ruin right away.
I think we talked about previously why Tindwood might be surprised at Sazed explaining metal mine mechanics.
How deep down that rabbit hole do you want to go?
I think we talked about it previously. That's why I brought it up. Just a brief reminder.
Yeah, Secret Society A does not like secrets of Secret Society B being known to the world at large.
And Ellen's thoughts on his system of might be how Brandon feels about his magic system at times.
That's great. Gosh, why am I so good at this? Every freaking interview I do is like a science test.
I'm too good.
They're like, what would happen if Steel Pusher got in a pushing match with a Elantris guy?
Who knows? We might find out in Era 3/Era 4. Is that all we have to say about Chapter 28?
There wasn't a ton for spoileriness.
Yeah.
Not until 29. There's a little bit. I think it was 29.
29, there's a little bit. Okay, let's just jump over to 29 then.
Yeah.
29,
So,
the biggest thing for me was just that, like, this is not Oreseur. Like,
yeah.
This is very much, it is, Tensoon is no longer trying to pretend to be Oreseur.
Mm-hmm.
He's being Tensoon.
Yes, and he's also not pretending that he doesn't know who Vane... Well, I mean, he is pretending that he doesn't know who Zane is, but he's not doing so well about it anymore.
Mm-hmm. He does give a straight-up lie about him, though.
Yes, and it's the only direct answer he gives, which is the tell.
Mm-hmm. But I gotta wonder, is this a side that Tensoon has never even let out before?
It seems likely.
Tensoon even recognized this role he is now playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably... Oh, go ahead.
I would say, yeah, I don't think he's been like this with anyone before. Really.
Yeah.
Especially not any masters. Like, he might have been with it like this with some of the other Kandra in the homeland, but like Meilon or other people or other Kandra that he was close to, but not.
Well,
but
and he's what, third or fourth generation?
He's third. He's a third.
So he's one of the oldest ones that are contract bound. So if anybody would have experienced a role like this as a Kandra, it would have been him or one of the like 5 other third generation Kandra.
Yeah. And my only other thing is maybe Tensoon is trying to protect Vin, and now he's telling her to stop trusting Zane. I think he's specifically trying to prevent this happening. He's now showing that he cares for Vin.
Yeah.
So he's in a pretty tough situation, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought about that. This whole time, he's playing both sides.
And he knows that he's going to have to betray Vin at some point.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to break that trust that she's given him. And he's going to have to do that because he has to follow his contract.
Or does he?
This is the spoiler section.
Raffo! No, in his mind at this point, yeah, he does have to.
I can't get past how obvious it is in hindsight that this is not Oreseur.
Yeah, well, hindsight is like that.
When you're looking for it, signs are always...
Well, and also, it's like, when you read it the first time, you're just thinking, oh, look, Oreseur is actually growing to trust Vin now, and is actually talking to her, and, like, wants to try to get to know her now. Not, oh, this is a different character.
Yeah, you kind of read it as him just, like, coming out of his shell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because we don't see much of Oreseur at the beginning.
Does he actually have a hard time changing out of the dog bodies? Or, I'm sorry, you should go, because I was going to change the subject. What were you going to say? I was going to ask if he likes being a dog. Because he says
I think he grows used to it.
He says it's difficult to swap bodies off. But I think that was like just an excuse. I think he just likes being a dog.
I think at this point he does like being a dog because it makes it easier for him to get around without being noticed. His sense of smell is really fantastic, and I think he knows that if he were to switch out of those bones that he wouldn't be able to follow Vin on her
that's true.
nightly rounds anymore. And he wants to continue doing that.
I think it's sort of like in Smash Bros. Brawl, like if you have like a main character used, and then somebody's like, "No, you have to pick a different one," and you find out that one's better. Initially, you're gonna be like, "No, I wanted to play Pit or whatever. Now I got to play Lucario."
Mm-hmm.
And you find out, wait a second, this one's actually pretty
Like,
good.
is Duck Hunt secretly nasty? And he is.
Yeah. Anything else for 29?
Got one for 30.
Okay, let's get to 30 then.
When Sazed's reading that, the writing, is it already altered by Ruin?
Yes.
Because,
There's a lot of fear mongering in it.
yeah, I went back. So when he first sees it, obviously it says, I write these words in steel, because anything not set in metal cannot be trusted. But then when he reads it again, it says, I write this record now, pounding it into a metal slab, because I am afraid for myself. Yes, I admit to being human. Yeah, it's like, it changes it, and it's really cool to see how it is literally
And-
just fear-mongering.
And there's also later on it's like as the one who found Alendi, like
The announcer.
or an announcer, but he also talks about, where was it? Alendi's height struck me the first time I saw him. He was a man who was small of stature and who seemed to tower over others, which before it was a man who was very tall and towered over others in the epigraphs.
That's a nice one. I've never noticed that one.
So is this to make it all sort of point to Vin, or what's the overall goal?
Yes.
One metal slab equals 20 pages. How big was that slab?
How small was his writing?
That's true.
Here it is, the actual epigraph.
It's a rubbing, keep in mind. So
Here's the actual epigraph I found.
That glare.
Alendi's height struck me the first time I saw him. Here was a man who towered over others, a man who, despite his youth and his humble clothing, demanded respect.
Mm.
And the changed one was, Alendi's height struck me the first time I saw him. Here was a man who was small of stature, but who seemed to tower over others, a man who demanded respect.
Ruin is a genius. I'll give him that. But sorry, but going back to my little comment about the metal slab. So Sazed has 20 pages. I only got 5 when I wrote it.
well, presumably you're
Front and
getting
back.
excerpts, so
That's true. We don't know if the epilogues are the entirety of it or the crucial bits.
also presumably you can write smaller than you could pound letters into a steel slab with a hammer and chisel. Because he probably doesn't have letter punches.
And Sazed was using post-it notes.
There you go.
He's got stickies all around his
It's
desk.
written in cuneiform.
Looks like Office Space.
Also, his papers had to be rolled up into his and stored in his backpack.
Smart. One of the things that Sazed comments that the Deepness might be is a dark god, if you will. I love it.
That is really good.
Mm.
And I wanted to ask, partially because I am forgetting a bit, I think I got some. Where does the Terris religion actually come from? Is it really just preservation telling the Terris people what's going to happen?
It was preservation. It was originally a prophecy that preservation had given to the Terris people about his own death that he had foreseen and what would need to lead to it, but he kind of sprinkled the prophecy throughout multiple places to try to make it not super specific, so when it does get, because he knew that Ruin was going to change it, and try to manipulate the people so that the important parts wouldn't get changed.
So if he had
Talk about
Like, if he had made a big manifesto that just said, this is everything you need to do to, like, fix the world, Ruin would have just changed that. But like, splitting everything up into these bite-sized little important pieces of information and spreading them across, like, every little religion protected it from that. That's really cool.
talk about preservation being a genius. Yeesh.
Yeah.
Preservation, I think Sanderson has said, was one of the shards who was the best at seeing into the future.
Well, how better to protect your charges than to know what's going to happen next?
Mm-hmm.
So,
True.
Sazed's not very good at seeing future, right? As Harmony?
That's debatable.
Oh, is it?
Sazed's not very good at doing much as Harmony. He's kind of pinned in place.
I think he can see as well as preservation, but I think there's a confusion of whether what's going on with Discord, like this whole thing with Discord and how, did Saza know all this was going to happen with the bomb and letting have to do all this to get up to that point? Was that all part of Saza's plan, or was that more of a, I've got nothing else, I'm going to roll the dice, I can't see past this point?
It's also very hard for him to act, as it were. So he has to do very small things. So he can't make big, like, changes at all with anything. So even if he can see into the future a fair bit, he might not be able to act on it very easily.
He's conflicted. It's like if you were, like, making a video game and your art director told you one thing, but the studio told you another thing. Like, oh my god, like, I can only do so much here because I gotta make both these things happy. Like,
Yeah.
that kind of idea.
Yeah.
And because they're so opposite in nature, he's almost paralyzed.
Mm-hmm. I side into that Saza knew exactly what he was doing and was all his plan. I have faith in my boy.
I kind of would probably take that perspective too, because it seems like he was hiding things from Kelsier at the end there.
Yeah, 100%.
He's playing the long game.
Yeah.
Only time will tell.
No, guaranteed he's going to become Discord and he will be the big bad ick of the overall Cosmere.
Well, Discord doesn't necessarily mean destruction.
Sazed, as Discord, is going to be the big bad ick of Dragonsteel.
That would be cool. Not of Dragonsteel.
Of Mistborn Era 4.
Of everything, all of it.
No.
When everything starts going back together, Sazed's going to be the big bad ick. He's going to be so badly corrupted by Ruin.
Sazed.
Just you wait. I'm calling it now.
I have a
See, the thing is, Discord.
Sazed becomes Aiden Elsium. He gets all of them.
No.
Because he's the only one who's had two for so long, and he's worked and learned to control them.
No, he's losing control.
He is.
He's
that
definitely
theory
losing control.
has been proposed.
And it's already been written in the epigraphs. Reader, you were the one who read
Discord.
His name shall be Discord, and he will be the big bad egg.
But it says they will love him for
That's
it.
really what it says. His name shall be Discord.
But they will love
the
him.
real bad egg.
But they will love him for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool if it all builds up to, like, the Scadrians being the bad guys, led by Discord?
And
it may be that way for a while, but I think it's eventually.
What if Discord lies? What if he says, these Rosharans are evil and they want to destroy and war, and he only gives them enough information? Sort of like how Ruin is fear-mongering. He only gives them enough information for them to cause chaos. And that by the time we get to realizing what had happened, we realize that he's just causing all this discord. And then we have to stop him.
I don't think Sazed's going to be a big bad. I'm going to be honest. I don't. I also don't think that they're going to reunite the shards into Adenalcium. I just don't feel like that's the direction Sanderson is going to go.
I don't know if that's going to be the case either. If it does happen, it's going to be Hoyd.
Unite.
But that's too obvious.
No,
it's going to be Zane.
I also don't think that's Hoyt's plan.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's going to be hoisted upon him. He's been running from responsibility for however long, and now he's going to get stuck with it, and that's just the way that I think that's going to happen. But who knows? That one doesn't. I don't have much support for that one. That's just my guts talking.
I have complete faith in Sazed. I think he's got a plan for this, but we should get back to Arrow 1.
What?
We're in the spoiler section. It's literally what this is for.
Yeah, but we're supposed to be spoiling specifically this, not going on our, we're still hyped about the Lost Metal.
Hey, you said we might talk about anything and everything from anywhere in the Cosmere. End quote.
This is true. I'll edit that out. So.
No, you won't. Swiggity won't.
That's right. In fact, there's going
If
to
you
be a
want a more
flashback.
short-term prediction, I think Autonomy is going to make another push for Scadrial, and Sazed's going to end up holding 3 shards, and that's really going to tear him every which way.
That would be cool. I think we've seen a lot of people ascend. And I think that's sort of been how we deal with everything, right?
We've only seen 3 people ascend.
Yeah, but like, we had Sazed do it, and that was kind of how we dealt with Arrow 1. We had...
I'm not including Rashik.
I was including Kelsier.
But I'm also counting, like, Dalinar at the end of Oathbringer.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I am Unity.
But he didn't ascend.
But he didn't actually become Honor. Honor is still...
No. Yeah, but still,
All he
like...
did was...
It feels like if we just start relying on the character to become a new god, then that feels a little bit tropey and cliche. I don't want us to keep redoing that.
It's an established process within the universe. Like it's a thing.
The thing
I'm not
that
saying
can happen.
Sorry.
It's a thing that can happen. I don't know if it's necessarily going to keep happening, but we know that it's a thing that can happen.
Mhm.
It's permanently happened to 2 people now. Well, I say permanently, but we don't know about
It's long term.
Taravantian.
Yeah.
We don't know about Taravantian yet. So.
Yeah, Terravage.
Yeah.
It's just do I like seeing our guys become gods? Yes. This is cool. I love it. But at what point does it start to feel, at the end of all the important books, this is what happens?
Are you telling me Warbreaker and Elantris are not important, sir?
No, that's it.
Because Elantris is in fact one of the core series in the Cosmere.
You put words in my mouth. You're ruining what I'm
You
saying.
are the one, sir, who said them. And furthermore, I would like to say
you had Swiggity go back and edit my words.
Like ruin.
Swiggity is truly the ruin.
Yeah, and your preservation.
I'm the one who's got the format for doing all the lines, and I gotta go exactly correct.
Well, I guess if we're gonna play that game, I guess I'm just whimsy then.
I don't even know what I would be.
Can we move on to chapter 31?
Probably
Since we seem to be done with chapter 30.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can move on. 31.
My only real note of this is that I think that Zane is not really paying attention to the assembly. He's really just focused on Ellen.
And Vin, he winks at her.
Yeah.
He's looking at Vin. He's paying a lot of attention to her and her reactions to things. He's looking to see how she reacts when Ellen tells the assembly about how Vin
The
is
greatest
keeping...
Mistborn alive.
Yeah. He's looking to see what her reaction is when that happens.
Yeah,
Insane in the membrane.
he's standing there
Insane in the brain.
menacingly.
Menacingly.
Just to get a rise out of her.
Yeah.
I do have one other comment that was caused by Kate. Wait, Cett doesn't stand? I completely might have forgotten about this.
Cett is paraplegic.
Oh, really?
Has been since he was a child.
Yeah, he's paralyzed.
I completely glossed over that, I guess.
I got a question that'll make me sound dumb. Is Cett the same Cett as Era 2 Cett? Spelled the same?
Same family.
Yes,
Yeah.
same family.
Alright, thank you.
Wait, really?
Easy one.
I thought it was just the fact that it was like a set of cards, like a matrix of, or an order of...
Oh, sorry. No, not the same set. Sorry, confused. I got confused by what Swiggity was saying. That's my bad.
Are you referring to the group, the Cett, or
Yeah.
No, those are different. They're spelled
So
differently.
Ashweather Cett
Yeah.
and the Cett are two different spellings, two different entities. Completely.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Cett, Ashweather Cett is spelled C-E-T-T.
Mm.
And then the Cett is spelled S-E-T.
Us audiobook fans have it rough.
Yeah, right. Then you go back and actually read the book, and all of a sudden Yasna is spelled with a J, and you're like, the fuck?
Her name is Yasna. Yas.
I don't even want to know how they spell Accendwith. Actually, it kind of sounded right.
Accent with?
Yeah.
Accent. It's horrible.
Cosmere's
Trying to figure out how Adelmelsium was spelled from the audiobook. Now that was a trip.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just remember trying to look up like different people. Like, whoa, what does Sadius look like? How do you spell Sadius?
Reading these books, I never knew how to pronounce Demu's name or Renu's name
Yeah.
because I always pronounced it Demox.
Hey,
Oh, no.
you could be like Brandon, who wants to say Kelsey A.
It is Garcia, you ignorant American. Blech.
That's why one doesn't.
I'm
go
the
to
one
Kansas
Smoke
closest
my
to
anymore.
cigarette
Europe.
and then spit at you. Blech.
Your mother was a hamster.
And your father smelt of elderberries.
Now go away, silly Englishman, or I will insult you again.
Okay, got a reference in.
Two coconuts together, club together.
We've all seen it,
Where
great.
did you get the coconuts?
Where'd you get the
African
swallow?
African swallow or a European swallow? I don't know.
I don't know.
African swallows are non-migratory.
Wait, my mates who's saying me.
I'm clapping my things together and it doesn't pick it up.
So not a lot of spoilers. This.
No.
It's just a lot of weird goofiness.
We took a week off and now we gotta make up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not substantively, just plain old silliness.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, like, the fact, also, just side note, but the fact that Cett cannot stand is a little bit of a spoiler, but, you know, it gets mentioned in the next chapter, so it's like...
Yeah.
We're only, like, right there.
I didn't remember it. And Cett was I never envisioned him really. The only time I really think of him is when Vin drops out of the sky with a Koloss blade and staff Straff.
Yeah.
She's like, the rest of you swear allegiance. Whatever you say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mentioned in book 3 as well, because at one point when they're in they're outside Fadric City, when Vin and Ellen like go off to the ball, Cett is left with Ham, and Ham looks at him and goes, "So you can't move, right? Unless someone gets you. I have a lot of logic puzzles for you. I'm gonna have a lot of questions to you."
Time to torture the father-in-law.
You're a captive audience, right?
No, this was Ham. This was Ham.
Oh, Ham. Sorry.
Yeah.
I am not in the mindset.
No, it was Ham talking because Cett reacts like Breeze does, but Breeze wasn't there for him to like bother. So he was like, "Ooh, I can bother Cett."
Oh boy. Well, is there anything left of spoilers we have to?
Is that like an FDR reference?
Yeah.
Like the fact that
I think so.
Did.
I would guess. Yeah,
All right, cool.
I would guess.
I was wondering if I was the only one.
For
who's
those
thinking
who do
that while
not-
talking about it.
For those who do not know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt have polio, and you will very rarely see a picture of him standing, because he most of the time hid his legs and feet.
And you'll mostly see pictures of him sitting behind a desk.
Yeah.
He was actually the president who got the front panel installed in the desk so that you couldn't see him in his wheelchair. Fun
Fun
fact.
fact, that panel is called a modesty panel. And it's there for women who wear skirts.
Any
Or at
other
least-
fun facts?
At least that was its original intent.
What was? I never knew that.
Yeah. It's amazing the things you learn in the AV industry.
Well, in that case, next up we're going to be covering chapters 32 through 35. I do not believe anybody has dibs on any chapters yet.
Nope.
But, okay.
Nothing as of the now.
Nothing of the now. But that's going to be it for our show. Thank you for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. Please be sure to remember that there's always another connection. Have a nice night.
Wasing is as wasing does.
Have a good one.
Peace out.
Same thoughts we now see as the prequels.
Probably because people have no taste and it's increasing.
I mean, kids will always like cool-looking guys in masks, you know? I'm sure there's kids out there who Kylo Ren is their favorite Star Wars character, you know?
Those people are wrong. Good lord.
Objectively, they are wrong. But they must exist.
I hope we aren't recording this part.
I would like to go on record as saying those people are wrong and they should feel bad.
Okay.
What if they're small children who don't know better?
Welcome to our
And their
Patreon
parents have done a
exclusive.
bad job of educating him, and that they should all feel bad.
Do you guys ever see the SNL where it's like undercover boss Kylo Ren?
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Yeah.
funny.
His lightsaber's really stupid. No, it's really cool. Here, let me go get it. Hey, I found this. Has anybody heard about the Words of Radiance Kickstarter yet?
No, I haven't heard anything about it.
It's leatherbound?
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything. No.
I think they're putting it off farther into this year. I would guess we would hear things about it in like June or July. Because I think they're trying to push it until they've fulfilled like at least half of the Year of Sanderson stuff. So
I'm only asking because I really want to get this one because this one's getting Dragonsteel Prime shipped with it.
oh,
That's crazy.
Is that what it is? You can get Dragonsteel Prime with it? Oh, fancy. I didn't know that. I don't know. I was like, I don't know. Know nothing.
You know what I just
That's
thought of
all I've heard.
is Secret Project 2 is coming out pretty soon, in like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
A week and 2 days.
Yeah.
Kay's not keeping track or anything.
Listen, I know that next Friday is the 31st because I have it off from work. So like I'm mostly keeping track of that day, and I just happen to know that the 1st is right after the 31st.
Do we know if Secret Project 2 is Cosmere?
It is non-Cosmere.
Okay, so we don't need to worry about it then.
Probably gonna read it.
But we can still do we can do a bonus episode about it if we want, even though it's non-Cosmere.
My mindset was if it was Cosmere, we could do a bonus episode on it. The main reason because is we've still got half of Words of Radiance, not Words of Radiance,
Well of Ascension.
the Well of Ascension. And I didn't want to interject something into Well of Ascension and throw it all off. And the fact that it wasn't Cosmere would mean there's even less of a reason to do so. That was my
The Two
thinking
Towers?
process.
Sorry. I just had this internal joke of what if I suggested the wrong book like really, really late? and I wasn't gonna say it, but I just couldn't let it go.
I was like, what is Swiggity talking about? Why did you just say that?
I waited so long, and then I was like, you know what? I'm saying it. You only live once.
YOLO.
That takes me back.